Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Tekken Talk. As Tekken 7 is somewhat sadly coming to an end, we've been looking back at kind of the road that got us here. We started with the top 10 Tekken 7 sets of all time, and today we'll be talking about the top 10 Tekken 7 characters. Now, in general, on this podcast, I don't love talking about character strength, it's not a topic. Um, that I think stands the test of time most of the time. But today will be an exception, kind of as we look back. And just to set some criteria here, so this will be throughout all of Tekken 7's lifespan, excluding the arcade exclusive period. So this is post console release. So season 1, season 2, season 3, and season 4. And I'm also excluding potential glitches or bugged characters. So this excludes Lars. When Lars had a 12 frame launcher essentially, and I don't think that character was ever actually played in a major tournament, and I think that situation could be considered a bug, so I'm excluding Lars from this list. Otherwise, I'm also not talking about potential, right? Because I think most people would agree, Kazuya, in terms of potential, like if a perfect AI could play a character, it's likely Kazuya would be top 2 or top 3 because of 13 frame electrics all the time, every day. But that's just not within a human's repertoire as of yet. Who knows how good Tekken players will be 10 years from now. Also, Brian is another one, right? If you have perfect execution, so you can dash in and taunt it up for everything, maybe Brian's top 10. But for now, I'm kind of looking at both how good the character was at the time, and in hindsight, even without considering crazy execution, how good they could have been, and how good they actually were, even if they were undiscovered. So, of course, one of the top picks is a character who, at the time, was not known to most of the world to be as good as he was. But, after a couple tournaments, people realized, okay, this character is one of the best ever. Okay, so let's get straight into honorable mentions. The 9, I would say the 9, 10, and honorable mention spots are almost interchangeable. They were really hard to pick. The only reason why it's a top 10 and not like a top 15 is because algorithm. But so honorable mentions, season 3 Julia. Julia was in my top 10 for most of me writing this list, but at the very end, I remembered a certain main character that kind of bumped her out. But yeah, Julia forward 1, her wall carry in season 3, her damage output was buffed on a lot of her just normals, which was just kind of crazy and super easy to use, and the mix-up potential was insane, and was basically the only character that stood up to another character on this list in tournament. And so then we have Launch Lydia. Launch Lydia is one of the 3 Season 3 DLC, arguably 4 Season 3 DLC characters that were very controversial because some of her moves were kind of pay-to-win feeling mechanics. So forward 2, I think it was Cat 1, which was this move out of stance that led to a forward 2 follow-up that did 60 damage or something. Of course, we're running 1. Just such oppressive, really strong moves. Needless, and also to mention her whiff recovery on things like her down forward 1. Basically, every one of her moves in neutral had Steve back 1 whiff recovery. So it was arguably kind of a nefarious character. Looking back, I don't think she was as crazy as we expect, as a lot of people thought, partially because, post the nerfs, she really did fall off very quickly, unlike some other characters who could withstand nerfs over and over again and still remain top tier. Season 1 Law, the famous Jimmy J. Tran quote of saying Season 1 Law was top 3 in the game. I think looking back at it, he was right. I was a Law main, so I'm somewhat biased towards this character. But the potential of wall standing for DSS 3+4 when 3+4 was -10, combined with his Dragon Cannon wall ender being unscaled on a clean hit, was just absurd. Looking back, this was just like a season 1 thing that I think if it remained in the game, you'd start to see wall winning a lot more tournaments. Just because you got one wall combo and the round was basically yours, and you could just kind of spam an 11 frame counter hit wall standing launcher. Next up, season 1 drag. I think we all kind of remember the JDCR era, but I don't think it was season 1 drag was as definitively like the best. I think it was really JDCR who is, the best. But season 1 drag still had a super buff running 2, and the running 2 into back 1+2, and the perfect down 2 was just kind of like a vortex that, because of the running 2 nerfs, has slightly kind of fallen off, but still very strong. Marduk at any point, right? I think you could argue is an S tier super top character. Didn't quite crack the top 10, but still really, really strong. Of course, we also have to mention season 1 Kazumi before all the nerfs. Back 2 was great. Jabs were great. Down forward 1, of course. Magic 4. Just a really, really strong, fast poking counter hit character that has since kind of gone downhill, but man, season 1 Kazumi was just really, really strong. And then lastly, in our honorable mentions, we have season 4, so current Claudio. Claudio is a character who has, I think, one of the best moves in the game, which is back 1. That is also a podcast episode we will be doing, looking back at the best moves in Tekken 7's history. But I think back 1 alone and his wall pressure makes him one of the best characters in Tekken 7 history. And, I think his potential from players like Javi Stanvir and Shadow has been kind of shown off over the years. Okay, that's it with honorable mentions. Let's get into the top 10 best Tekken 7 characters of all time, excluding glitches. All right, number 10, modern day season 4 Kunimitsu. So, yes, Evo was a Kunimitsu mirror match in grand finals, but I don't even think you need to look at that. I think you just need to look at 2 moves, really, which is set 2 and 2-2. So in Tekken, there's not many quote-unquote neutral skip moves. So a neutral skip move from 2D fighting games kind of refers to a move that lets you bypass footsies and just like get in on the opponent. Stagem made a video recently about this that I recommend checking out. But the point is, neutral skip moves are a part of fighting games, and they always have been. But Tekken, I think, kind of famously, has had less quote-unquote neutral skip moves than other fighting games. Because one of Tekken's highlights is the idea of you really need movement to get in. You can't use a move to get in. But set 2, I think, is just such a good move, right? It's a 12-frame counter launcher. Technically, if you want to say it's not 12 frames because you have the set stance, which takes some frames to get in, that's fair enough. But the getting in is faster than a forward dash. So in a way, and it does have a mix-up to it, and it is homing. So I think if there is a quote-unquote neutral skip move in Tekken, it would be arguably Julia's forward 1, but I think set 2 is kind of the one. And then 2-2 has kind of brought on this revolution in terms of mind games at the highest level with string finishing. So right, for a while, doing strings was kind of a meme, oh, you got stringed out. But now top players just get stringed out because Kunimitsu strings are just so strong. And I think it's really highlighted with 2-2, especially, which I think I've gone over in a previous podcast, not video, but where you can whiff the first hit of 2 at a range where the second hit will basically hit anything the opponent does. And I think that mind game of kind of that spacing mind game is just so strong with Kunimitsu. And having set 2 is really just such a unique tool that only she has access to. And so yeah, Kunimitsu season 4, number 10. Number 9. This is the character that was in my honorable mentions, but honestly, I think too many people would be like, what the hell, or raise an eyebrow if he wasn't in the top 10, which is Season 2 Jin. Season 2 Jin is arguably a perfect character. Again, in terms of potential, I think if an AI could play Tekken, Jin would be number 1, of course, because of parry. But this was back when forward 4 wasn't really nerfed that heavily. His magic 4 was buffed to give him like the best combo ever. Jin had a huge buff to his down 4, like that high evasion kind of round ending low used to be minus 13 and it became minus 12, which is essentially like a huge change. Because of course at minus 13, most characters have hard knockdown punishes. So Jin's forward 2, electric, hell sweep, a good rage drive, access to plus frames, parry, evasive moves. I mean, I'm gonna avoid saying this character had everything because I don't think it really applies until we get to like our top spots. But this character had basically everything. Down back 3 still knocked down. I mean, Season 2 Jin was just a monster, and I think the only thing holding him back from higher places is I think he was slightly weak to really good counter hit timing and really good counter hit games. But yeah, Season 2 Jin at number 9. Number 8 is Season 2 Devil Jin. I almost wanted to put Season 3 Devil Jin because he got the huge wall combo, like take him to the sky buff, where, I mean, it did kind of break the tournament meta a bit, because if you pick Devil Jin after you lost, or if you had Devil Jin and then you lost the first game, you could go to Forgotten Realm, the floor break stage, and essentially do one combo and win the round, because his combo damage with that combo was just like half-life minimum on a float or something ridiculous. Combine that with the fact his health sweep broke the floor. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But his up forward 4 was nerfed in Season 3 to give that really weird far away knockdown. And I think that was a bigger nerf than the wall combo was buffed. So Season 2 Devil Jin still had a really good up forward 4, which basically made his mix-up potential with Hell Sweep just absurd, combined with the fact that he still had, an electric. I think just those 3 moves, electric, up forward 4, Hell Sweep, complemented by forward 2, and Laser Scraper with, 1-1-2. It was a really easy. I think Devil Jin at that time was probably the easiest Mishima. So assuming you had execution, the mind game side of things was probably the easiest. And, super dominant and a really strong character in Season 2, especially before the up forward 4 nerf of Season 3. Okay, and number 7, I've been a Fang main since 2021 or whatever, 2022. But yeah, Season 3 Fang. I mean, I think the thing that separates Season 3 Fang from the previous iterations of Fang really was the combo damage potential. Essentially, Fang historically had always had kind of awkward combos, and then the down forward 4/3 buff not only gave him more combo potential, but just better combo damage. And the down forward 4 to 1+2 gave him better wall carry. And basically, he was really missing combo damage before. And I think that, when you combine that with his Kempo step being really good, is what tied the whole package together. A lot of people say his down back 3 buff, the counter hit, is what skyrocketed him to top tier, because you had down back 3 mixed up with down forward 3 combined with fish hook, or his back 4 being a 12 frame mid check, one of the best moves in the game. But the combo damage thing, which I think we saw actually at Evo, right? So at Evo, if you watch Nice Fang, I think one of the reasons why his small, super defensive, super aggressive kind of mixing up worked so well is because he would get that launch, and when he got the launch, it would just be an absurd amount of damage. And I think before you would get the launch, but then you need to repeat that amazing neutral play over and over again because the combo damage just wasn't there. But if you want to say the down back 3 buff brought him into the top 10, I think that's fair enough. Either way, I think he definitely deserves a spot. What an absurd character. Okay, now we are getting into the top 6 characters. These are the characters where if you're gonna call a character broken or like busted or whatever you want to say, I would agree with you. So these are the 6 characters where I'm not sure, where I think they definitively don't belong in a balanced Tekken game. So they are like characters that people would make videos about, like, oh, here's a top 10 most broken fighting game characters ever, that might be included in that. Or most broken characters in Tekken history. I think these characters can fall in to those categories. Before this, I think they were like super OP, super good characters. Well, not OP, super, super good characters, but in the context of Tekken 7. I think these top 6 characters are like all-time ridiculous characters. So coming in at number 6 is Season 1 Paul. For those who don't know about Season 1 Paul, go back to YouTube, or go on YouTube, and just look up Paul combos from like 6 years ago, or something. Or Paul punishment from like 6 years ago. His back 2-1 12-frame punish homing move used to knock down and give like the best Oki situation in the game. It was almost a guaranteed follow-up from this 12-frame punish that you were getting like 40 damage or something. Again, into an insane Oki scenario, so if he wanted to mix you up, he could. His Death Fist did 60 damage, I think, on a clean hit. Maybe it was 65. He used to have this thing where he could launch you, sidestep into the Rage Art cancel, and do a reset combo that led to like at least 100 damage minimum. He genuinely had wall death combos that were like in-game viable and like easy to access with like his 13 frame wall standing punish, or like back 2-1, or like a hop kick. Needless to say, his down forward 2 is still amazing, but like that was part of the package. His crouch dash 3 still amazing, leads into a follow-up Demo Man, but really it was the Death Fist damage, the wall, not the wall, the back 2-1, and this kind of sidestep glitchy reset thing. But the back 2-1 punish, 12-frame punish, I think, combined with his wall damage, really just made him like a busted character. Like, I gotta stop saying like, I think it's the best 12-frame standing punish besides 2D characters in the game. And again, he had quarter circle back 2. His mids were just so good. Like, everything about Paul was just so good. And he was so evasive with like forward 1+4 or back 1+2 for Power Crush. I mean, yeah. The back 1+2 thing was broken. And so because of that, he's in the top 6. I don't think a character should have had that kind of punish, or that combo extender in the game. Okay. Number 5. I think you all knew this person was going to be on the list. Season 2 Geese. Season 2 Geese. So Season 3 Geese, just to tackle that issue, did have Moon Slicer, which gave him access to better, I guess, more extended combos and a couple new combos in a few different situations. But Season 2's Geese down forward 1, I think, was -1 on block. And a -1 on block down forward 1 that has all of these follow-ups, again, the high follow-up or the mid-counter launcher follow-up, was just absurd. Like, if you watched players like fighting GM, like 90% of their moves was just down forward 1, down forward 1, down forward 1. And this is combined with back to his back to homing move. So, yeah, I mean, the back to homing move being a counter hit launcher, the down forward 1 string, these 2 moves in tandem combined with all his 2D shenanigans, so like his standing 2 into depth combo, his death combos in general, the rage arts, the raging storm, which is essentially a DP, the jump in. I mean, it's a 2D character. in Tekken. It's super strong. And I really think the fact that he had these like amazing normal Tekken moves with down forward one, and then also have all the 2D mechanics. Man, season 2 Geese was kind of a nightmare. And I don't really think was relative to the rest, to most of the cast in terms of access to really, really great neutral moves combined with really, really powerful moves. Okay, so then the top four. The top four are. So the top six I said were like busted, all time busted. I think the top four are like whatever level is above that. So I think these top four are definitively more ridiculous. Maybe not definitively, but the top three, definitely, the top four are more ridiculous than Paul and Geese. Mainly because, I mean, even with Geese, right, in season 2, you had to be like pretty good at Tekken to get a lot of this, to get a lot of out of him. The top four, with the one exception, like, you didn't have to be good at Tekken to get a lot out of them. You could just do stuff, and you would just win matches, like, magically. Which is, I don't think most people think that should be in the game, right? I think most people think each character you need to apply mind games, lots of different things to try and win. But here we go. Number 4, Season 2 Steve. In my opinion, this is the best non-2D and non-nefarious character in Tekken 7 history. Season 2 Steve's down forward 2, again, spoilers for an upcoming video, I think is maybe the best Tekken move ever. It was a safe homing mid fast counter hit launcher. Even if you want to throw in the Shiro combo difficulty, it genuinely doesn't matter. Because I do think at the highest level that became a pretty consistent combo. But the way to understand how good this Steve was is to even watch a Tiff Butt play Season 3 Steve. If you watch a Tiff Butt play Season 3 Steve, he literally only did 2 moves, which is back 1 and down forward 2, 90% of the time. I'm not going to go to YouTube and watch some of his matches. These 2 moves made Steve, I think, one of the easiest characters ever. I think Season 2 Steve, when the execution was slightly less demanding, when he got the Sonic thing, Rage Drive for comebacks, his rocket launcher plus sweep at the wall is just insane wall pressure. But really down forward 2, and the down forward 2 back 1 strength in Season 2, but really down forward 2 just were too much. Were really, really too much. And you could pick up Steve super easily, and all you had to do was focus on timing. As long as you timed your attacks well, like, you were doing great. You didn't have to focus much on mix-ups. You didn't have, and, this is controversial, but you had such a smaller bag of moves to focus on that it just made the game easier. And I think that's true both at any level of play, at any level of playing Steve. So yeah, Season 2 Steve, I think the best non-2D, like, quote-unquote, I'll call him nefarious character in Tekken 7 history. Okay, at number 3. These are, this is the first quote-unquote nefarious character. It is a DLC character. It is Launch Fakumram. And when I say nefarious, I mean clearly, in my opinion, intentionally pay to win. Clearly overtuned to kind of get people to buy him. So some would say Fakumram was unique because, it's likely the devs made a mistake in his sizing and a couple of things that led to his movement being really good. But I really don't think that's the case. I think there's enough evidence from Season 3 that the dev team was super duper overtuning these characters. They likely had instructions from Harada or Michael Murray, but Launchfac, what made him so ridiculous and banned in tournaments in Pakistan, they banned this character, was, imagine if you took the best movement in the game, like Zafina-like movement, with the best range in the game, and you combine those two things. I mean, that's what Launchback was, right? Launchback had the best backdash in the game, comparable to Zafina's, maybe better, and then just insane long range buttons. Like his launch standing 3 was a 13 frame mid check that reached from like range 2. And then of course he had jet kick. And of course he had forward forward 1+2. And of course he had shoulder. And of course he had down forward 1-4, his launcher that just reached from forever. So when you have these super long range, super strong moves combined with the best movement and best backdashing movement in the game, it was a problem. And it was like clearly overtuned. So I think most people noted at the time, like there's a philosophy in fighting games in general, that bigger characters with really long range or really powerful moves can't have the best movement. Because if really big characters have the best movement, then there's no trade-off with them getting these really strong, really long-range moves. And so that's basically what Launch Phantom Run was. I remember it was a little bit comical when Phantom Run came out. You know, people were like, wow, they really recovered from Launch Leroy. They really, you know, this character is much more interesting. It's a lot less, you know, pay to win. And then like 2 weeks later, for most people, of course there were people who saw it earlier, but it was like, oh no. Oh no, 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 no. This is not that much better than what happened with Launch Leroy. This is a pay to win character that was overtuned and needs to be tuned down. And has since been tuned down. Many people would say arguably too much. I don't remember the last time you saw Facomrom. But, you know, I think they nerfed him so hard because the launch really was just ridiculous. Number 2. So number 2 and number 1, I think everyone knows who they are. It's just a question of the order. And for me, the tiebreaker was just like realized potential. That's the tiebreaker. So I'm giving the character who actually realized their potential as being the most broken character ever to the number one, giving them the number 1 spot. But number 2 is Season 2 Akuma. Now, I'm pretty sure Arcade Akuma was the most broken character in Tekken 7's history, but just from console release, they buffed Season 2 Akuma from Season 1 by giving him a wall standing 3 13 frame launcher, a counter hit launching mid that granted was rather slow, but just another like normal Tekken tool that was really good. They slightly buffed some of his crouch jab game and slight buffs on the frames from his fireball. But this was, I think, right, Season 2 was still the time before like a Weiss Honey and a Tiff Butt showed the world what this character was really all about. This was still a time when top players were putting Akuma in kind of mid-tier as a character. But I mean, looking back now, right, if you gave Season 2 Akuma to a Tiff Butt right now, I mean, he would win every tournament without dropping a game. He's already winning like a lot of tournaments, right? He won the TWT finals, but he wouldn't drop a game. I mean, the meter gain was greater. The counter hit game was greater. The keep out game was greater than it is now. And even now, people still think Akuma's the best in the game. So Season 2 Akuma was, I think, the most broken version of Akuma on console. And people just didn't know, right? Like, Super Akuma was, you know, showing off that Akuma can be tournament viable, of course. But the idea of him being just like a god wasn't really known to most people in the Tekken community outside of Pakistan. And yeah, since then, I think most people will look back and be all like, wow, Akuma's this good now. I can't imagine him before all these nerfs. But he did exist, and it is Season 2 Akuma. It's just I don't think we saw much of his actualized potential in tournament or even in online, right? This is also, by the way, when they gave Akuma his wall bounce, the down forward 2-2. Okay, number one, I think we all know who this is, but Launch Leroy, Season 3. This is the moment. Launch Leroy is the character besides coronavirus, that most derailed Tekken 7's like astronomical growth. I mean, Tekken 7 was growing at like an exponential rate around Season 2, you know, with Arslan Ash winning Evo. There was so much excitement about it. And excluding the pandemic, of course. Launch Leroy basically hurt the ties between the community and the development team and really like put a sour taste in the Tekken community's mouth, which I think really did slow the growth of Tekken 7 some, because he was an explicit, obvious pay-to-win character. Like, you pay $5.99 and you get a definitively better than everyone else character. And it's not even close. It's like a definitive joke. Especially because, right, Season 2 Akuma, you still needed godlike execution, right? To reach this god level potential. But Launch Leroy, you needed nothing, right? You just needed to know the basics of Tekken. And then with the basics of Tekken, you could just win against other characters. So the list is so long, but let's just go over a little bit what made this character the best character ever. Back 1+2 was a 12 frame safe mid launcher that had decent range at the time, like way more range than it does now, and recovered like Steve's back one. So it was faster than Steve's back one. It didn't have as good range, but it was faster and it recovered basically as fast. And it was mid. Are you kidding me? It was an absurd move. Down 1+2 was a 0 on block, but it forced the opponent into crouch, counter hit launcher with absurd range, and some tracking to one side. So you could just spam down 1+2 because it was 18 frames. It was fast. That kind of move is normally not allowed until you're in the 20 frames area. But he had it at 18 frames. And it was like the best version of one of these moves. His cane left him like plus 80 million. So it was a long range once around. Was it once around or once a game? I don't quite remember. But it was maybe once a game. But it was basically a win button because it was a long range 100 damage combo starter that left him plus on block in a mix-up scenario. His forward 3 was a homing plus on block high that launched. Are you kidding me? His back 3 was a homing mid wall splat and was still one of the best moves into the game until they nerfed the wall splat property. His back 4 was like Bob's new hop kick. It was like an insane but with more range. It was an insane long range launcher. His Hell Sweep was homing and had more range than it does now and did more damage. His back 1 was a better version of Fang's back 1 get off me tool. His combos, so there's this mechanic in Tekken, right, where certain characters will have unscaled combo enders, like Asuka, Gigas, Fang, Anna. Like, some characters have this ability to do a 2-hit or 3-hit string where the last hit of the string of the combo is unscaled. But in general, the strongest character in the game normally doesn't have that. And yet, Leroy had down 2-3, which was, or maybe down 2-4, but down 2-3, which was that unscaled second hit from any combo. So normally a constraint on these combos is the combos can't be too long, otherwise the last hit will whiff. Leroy had this from his like longest combos. And he also had it from float, and it did like 13 damage as an ender or something. So, or I think it was more. It might have been like 20. But basically, after every combo, even if it was a full wall carry combo, he had this unscaled hit property. How about this? How about this? How about 1-1 was a safe 10-frame high-mid counter hit launcher that won book Evo Japan, I should say. I mean, and of course parry, right? And of course his parry was just even better than it was now, recovering much quicker. So I know that was a rant, but yeah, Launch Leroy was the best character, I think, in Tekken 7 history. Of course, there was 6 out of 8 players in Evo Japan using at top 8 using Leroy, and since Ulsan did use Leroy earlier in the bracket, you could maybe even say 7 out of 8 players in top 8, which is historic not only for Tekken but for fighting games in general. And yeah, the Tekken team knew how busted this character was, but I wanted to rehash it and get walked down memory lane of Launch Leroy. Now I actually think I really like the character. My one complaint about him is he doesn't have enough cool execution stuff for the way his moves kind of look, but I think they're fixing that in Tekken 8. But yeah, that was the list, I guess. The honorable mentions and the top 10 strongest characters in Tekken 7 history. Did I miss anyone? Please let me know. I really hope you enjoyed this video, this podcast. Maybe I watched too much YouTube, but all right. Have a great day and a happy New Year.